Ever since I was young, I've had an interest in cars. My father sparked this interest for me one day at a local auto show. At first, I was interested in going because he offered pizza as an incentive. However, after walking around with my dad and seeing the Mustangs, Chevelles, and Corvettes of the past, I was immediately hooked. I soon was asking my parents for die-cast models of all the cars I liked. At one point, I even took money from my parents to get a Ford GT40 because they told me I already had enough cars. When it came time for me to start driving, the idea that maybe I would be able to get a car that I wanted started to surface. At the time, I had a friend named Audie, who shared the same interest as me. We set out to find cars that we could afford, were fun, and most importantly for me, were fast. There were many choices available, but in the end, I wanted a Datsun Z, and he wanted a Miata. Fast forward to the summer. I found a Z that was close by. I pleaded with my dad, and he agreed to go and see it with me. From the moment I laid eyes on that 82 280ZX in the driveway, I knew I had to have it. Next thing I know, my dad and I are driving it home. I couldn't wait to learn stick so I could start driving it. My dad took me out that weekend, and just like that, I was a pro. There was only one problem though. All I had was a driving permit, so I couldn't drive alone. Since there was nothing else to do, there was only one thing I could think of doing: make it faster. Within a month, another Z ended up in my driveway, but this one was a turbo. The body had seen better days, and the engine bay had a bird's nest in it. Not good. Somehow though, I got it running by nighttime after trailering at home. The following day, my friend Audie and I went to a local mechanic and borrowed an engine hoist to pull the turbo engine out and put it in my car. We had literally no idea what we were doing, but we eventually got both engines out, and surprisingly by nightfall, the turbo engine was in and we were exhausted. It took me a couple days to figure out how to wire everything, but eventually it ran, and it was in my car. The first drive with the new engine was pretty amazing. I even let my dad drive it, although he drove like a frickin' grandma. So let it get pretty high before you shift.
Shift it all then. I don't have a tachometer now.
I was so satisfied after that first drive. However, that satisfaction did not last very long, because I decided that I wanted to paint my own car red. It took hours of sanding, hammering on body panels, pulling out dents, and exactly 15 coats of Rally red paint rolled on over the course of a week. But for $100, I think it turned out pretty well. Now that I got the car the way I wanted it, and I got my license, I can finally drive it. You might think at this point I would have been done with the car and driven it and enjoyed it as it was. That's not the case, however. The truth is, I had always appreciated the classic look of the older Zs compared to the newer ZXs, and I wanted a 280Z more than the car that I had right now. So, on to Craigslist it went. There were tons of people interested, and eventually someone came to see it. Just as quickly as I got my first car, it sold in the same way. This brings me to my next adventure. The thing I didn't get about 280Zs compared to 280ZXs, other than their body style, is that they're rarer, more expensive, and in most cases in worse shape because of their old age. When I started looking in the winter for a new Z, I only had a few options. There were two expensive ones out of my budget that were nice, and one that was about half my budget but in terrible shape. I thought to myself, hey, I've already basically rebuilt one car before. How bad could it be this time? So, I went ahead and got the cheap one. Boy, how wrong was I. When I got it home and started really looking at it, I realized how big of a mistake I made. The engine had no compression, the interior was shot, the wiring was almost completely unusable. Better yet, I found out the car had been involved in an accident before. These observations to a normal person would make them realize they got gypped, and they would sell the car for scrap or sell it to someone else who would fall for the same scam that I did. I, however, am not a normal person, and immediately I started work on it to get it on the road. I wouldn't go into as much detail as I did with my ZX, but I'll list everything I've done to it so far. The first thing I did was replace the blown engine and transmission with a new turbo engine and transmission. I rewired all the lighting in the car, I created my own wiring harness to run the new engine, and replaced the computer that controlled the engine with a modern open source one called Megasquirt. I redid my fuel system, I redid all the brakes, the clutch, and I even welded my own exhaust with my friend Audie's welder. Not to mention, about a week ago I also painted my car traffic cone orange. What I like to do most now is take the Z out to car meets and track events like Formula Drift and SCCA races. I meet my friend Audie there, wherever we go, and we have a great time. To sum it all up, cars have influenced me big time since that first car show, and the adventures I've shared with my friends will be with me forever, no matter what lies ahead.